someone says, "Nice shirt." The receiver answers, "Thanks, it was cheap, I hate it, and yours is better." Within seconds, two words of praise have produced a defense of the price, the shirt, the receiver's taste, and a comparison between the two shirts. Nobody accused the receiver of arrogance. The compliment did not even contain a question. Still, the reply becomes a rapid defense against several social risks that nobody mentioned. The positive message is easy to understand. The mystery is why answering it seems to require identity, status, politeness, and damage control all at once. The obvious explanation is confidence. Perhaps praise feels awkward because the receiver simply does not believe it. That can happen, but it cannot explain the whole reaction. A person may privately think, "Yes, I do like this shirt," and still answer with a cautious, "Thanks, but it was cheap." Even confident people usually avoid directly endorsing the praise. The hesitation is not always about whether the praise is true. It can be about whether agreeing too clearly will sound proud, self-important, or strangely eager for approval. The real puzzle, then, is the gap between accepting a compliment internally and knowing what kind of acceptance the conversation allows out loud. Before blaming the receiver's personality, we should look at the message arriving in the first place. Is praise genuinely difficult to decode, or does the difficulty begin only after it has been understood? Ordinary compliments are usually easy to decode, and the difficulty begins with the reply. In a classic corpus of American English, 85% follow just three basic sentence patterns. 5 adjectives, nice, good, beautiful, pretty, and great, carried much of the praise. The receiver rarely needs to decode whether nice shirt means the shirt is nice. That part is finished almost instantly. The delay begins afterward, when the receiver starts deciding what agreement would imply. A two-word message has been understood, yet the reply is still calculating pride, gratitude, status, and the other person's feelings. With message complexity mostly cleared away, the focus shifts to the reply, which is trying to obey two social rules that point in opposite directions. Conversation analyst Anita Pomerantz described the trap as a conflict between two ordinary social preferences. You are expected to agree with the person who has just said something positive about you. Rejecting the compliment too sharply can imply that the giver judged badly, as in a blunt reply like, "No, this shirt is terrible." Enthusiastic agreement creates the opposite risk. "Yes, it is an excellent shirt, and I chose it because my taste is excellent," may be honest, but it can sound openly boastful. The receiver therefore has to validate the giver without appearing to admire themselves too openly. A clean no threatens the other person's judgment, while a clean yes can look like self-praise. The convenient answer sits between them. "Thank you, but it was cheap," or "Thanks, yours is nicer." These replies are not random failures to accept kindness. They are quick compromises between agreement and modesty. Once that compromise reaches the mouth, it appears as a small collection of familiar maneuvers, each solving the same conflict in a slightly different way. They can downgrade the praise quality, "It's old," "It was cheap," or "It only looks good in this light." They can qualify the achievement, moving attention from ability toward luck, timing, or unusually generous circumstances. Credit can also be handed to someone else, wrapped in a joke, or redirected with an immediate compliment in return. Each move protects the same thing. The giver's praise is acknowledged, but the receiver avoids endorsing themselves too enthusiastically. "Thank you, but" is the clearest version because gratitude arrives first, and modesty follows before the agreement feels too exposed. In a study using 1,080 Mexican and Irish scenario responses, this hybrid pattern was the most common combined reply. "Thank you," followed by qualification or deflection, appeared in 30% of the Mexican answers and 29% of the Irish answers. The same compromise can work in two different social environments, but that does not mean every culture defines acceptance and modesty the same way. A simple cultural story would say Americans accept praise directly, while Syrians protect modesty by rejecting it. But across 87 American compliment response sequences, 50% were accepted, 45% were mitigated, and 3% were rejected. Among 52 Syrian sequences, acceptance was higher at 67%, mitigation accounted for 33%, and none were rejected. The stereotype does not survive the numbers. Culture still matters, but it shapes response norms rather than assigning every society one fixed rule for humility. Social distance matters too. Praise from a close friend, a manager, and a stranger can use the same positive adjective while asking very different things of the receiver. Power can make acceptance feel risky, familiarity can make deflection unnecessary, and the topic itself can determine whether the attention feels harmless or loaded. No single response is automatically confident, modest, polite, or uncomfortable without knowing who said what to whom. A compliment from someone important does more than report a pleasant opinion. It becomes information about who you are. The receiver compares that information with a self-image built from years of habits, memories, successes, and failures. When the two versions match, the praise can settle with relatively little friction. When they conflict, something has to give. The compliment may be doubted, the giver's judgment may be questioned, or the receiver may briefly reconsider their own identity. Closeness can make this harder rather than easier. Praise from a stranger can be dismissed as politeness, but the judgment of a trusted person carries more weight and is harder to dismiss as meaningless. Across 4 studies, people with lower self-esteem reported more self-focused concern and more negative emotion after compliments from close partners. They were also more likely to devalue the praise, reducing its importance or treating it as less credible. That reaction does not necessarily mean they dislike the giver or secretly know the compliment is false. Discounting the praise can restore the familiar version of the self, which may feel more stable even when it is less flattering. Identity mismatch explains why praise gets questioned, but it cannot explain the receiver who believes every word and still wants the attention removed immediately. Psychologists call one version of this fear of positive evaluation. Criticism is not the only judgment that can activate defenses, because favorable attention also makes a person more visible. Praise may suggest that expectations are rising, that people will keep watching, or that the next performance could expose the compliment as a mistake. The praise may feel good while the expectations attached to it create anxiety about future performance. In a clinical study of 144 adults, fear of positive evaluation was highest in groups with social anxiety, either alone or alongside another condition. Higher fear was associated with more anxiety, more safety behaviors, less positive emotion, and less desire to interact with the other person again. That finding does not turn every nervous thanks into a diagnosis, but it shows that positive attention can be a measurable source of discomfort in its own right. Minimizing, joking, redirecting praise, or ending the exchange quickly can all reduce visibility before the positive judgment expands. The receiver may feel an entire spotlight, while the giver sees only a hesitation and often assumes the kindness landed worse than it really did. From that evidence, they may conclude that speaking up was intrusive and that silence would have been kinder. The receiver may be doing almost the opposite, enjoying the praise while softening the reply so they do not appear arrogant or leave the giver waiting for the correct reaction. Both people are protecting the interaction with incomplete information. Across 5 experiments, compliment givers underestimated how positive recipients would feel. They also overestimated how bothered or uncomfortable the recipients would be. An awkward answer can therefore coexist with a genuinely positive internal reaction, which makes conversational smoothness a poor measure of whether the kindness mattered. Ordinary compliments may be safer than both people predict, yet the same attention can feel warm in one relationship and pressuring in another. A compliment can also carry unwanted intimacy, objectification, manipulation, or pressure created by a difference in power. Praise from a manager, a stranger, or someone expecting something in return may leave the receiver with far less freedom to respond honestly. In those situations, minimizing, changing the subject, creating distance, or rejecting the comment can protect a boundary rather than perform modesty. The wording alone cannot tell us whether the attention is friendly, intrusive, strategic, or unsafe. Explaining deflection does not entitle every giver to gratitude or reassurance. Just say thank you is not a moral rule. Back in the original exchange, the words have not changed. Nice shirt. The compliment is a small gift, but receiving it can come with a social invoice. Accept the kindness, manage the attention, respect the giver, and avoid appearing too impressed with yourself. That is a surprising amount of work to hide inside the word thanks. Then the familiar deflections appear. The price is minimized, the shirt is criticized, and praise is immediately returned. The reply is awkward, but it is neither random nor proof that something is wrong. It is a human social system trying to protect identity, politeness, and the relationship at the same time. Whether the compliment felt good remains partly hidden, but the strange reply no longer has to look like failure.